Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Love of Creatives. Today I'm Maddox. I'm here with co-host Dwight, and today's featured guest is Jennifer Locke. Jennifer, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I know that you and Dwight initially met at our experience event. Is that correct?
Or creative mornings.
Yeah, we initially met at Creative Mornings and we're I was, talking as many people get drawn into wonderful conversations with Dwight because he's so present and available. And so we were just having a conversation, and then he had kind of mentioned it as something that they were doing, and he gave me his business card. And so I looked it up online and I signed up for the newsletter. And then once the first, well, I guess February is the, I've attended one, it was in February. And when the registration went for that, I said, this is something that I want to prioritize. And I think we connected again at the next Creative Mornings, and he was talking about it and had like asking if I was in. And I was like, dude, I already signed up. I'm gonna be there. I'll see you. I'll see you at the one. So that's how we initially connected. And then I went to the event you all hosted. And that's the one that I've been able to attend thus far. I hope to attend more in the future. And it was just such a wonderful, wonderful, lovely evening where I met great people, and to be able to be intentional in that way with other artists was a gift. So it's something that I'm pursuing, or that I'm making more and more space for in my life.
Yay, I love to hear that. So, since you brought that up, this is not really necessarily part of our conversation, but I'm going to make it part of our conversation. What was your takeaway from that evening? What did you walk away with that you didn't have when you arrived?
Well, connections for one thing, met some people, and then, went out to grab lunch with at least one person, and I would like to do that more. Um, but you had asked the question when we were there about why it was important for us to be there that evening, in one of the wonderful breakout circles that we did. And so I said that I really want to put myself forward as an artist and get into the practice of doing that, and really claim that moniker. And so that's why it was important for me to do that. So I got practice in doing that when I attended that event.
Yay, yay.
Yes.
And we'll come back to this. This is
Yeah.
I think this is our starting point. But before we
Uh-huh.
jump in, I want to give you an opportunity, just a kind of a brief overview. If you'll tell our listeners who you are and a little bit about how create your primary way that creativity shows up for you.
Okay. Okay, well, great. My name is Jennifer Locke. I go by, you can also call me Jen. I answer to either one. And creativity shows up for me. I would say it's kind of the organizing principle of my life. So I'm a writer, and I had been traditionally employed prior to having twins, and that was almost 10 years ago. And the traditional structures of employment no longer made sense for our family. And so I had always wanted to write. I had always felt a desire to write, and loved it. And if you'd asked me what I wanted to be when I was a little kid, then that's what I would have told you. And yet I didn't take creative writing classes in college because I was too intimidated. I just somehow, you know, thought that that was something for other people and not for me. And so it wasn't until I was in my mid 20s that I reconnected with that desire, thanks to my husband, and who encouraged me in that direction. And anyway, so when I began writing in earnest, seriously, at that time in my mid 20s. And so knew that I'd kind of always organized my life around the decision of, will this enable my desire to be a writer? like traditional employment teaching. Didn't do it long term because I did do it. That's how I started my career. But I didn't think it was going to afford me as much time as I wanted to pursue the thing that I really wanted to do. So I would say that that's always been the compass by which I've kind of oriented myself. I started when I left the traditional workforce, I had been writing seriously for a while. And when I say seriously, I mean like diligently and trying to get better at the craft. Um, and I, throughout that process, been writing middle grade books. So that's for, younger readers, like 8 to 14. So I'd had the practice of doing that for quite a while and knew that I had the skill set of writing books. There's a winding pathway in between that and what I ended up doing as a career, which is I currently work as a freelance writer and a ghostwriter of nonfiction books. But the through line has always been, how can I organize my life around the thing that I most want to do and also get paid for it? And so that's kind of a circuitous answer to your question, but I write for my business and I also write for love. I still write fiction, and as many other artists that you speak to, I am always trying to keep the balance up, not letting one overwhelm the other and trying to keep the two in balance and really keep the writing that I do for myself as the primary thing. Because when I am dedicating time to my writing and to the writing that is meaningful to me, and of course it's all meaningful to me, but to the thing that is my number one, I find that it is I'm a lot happier in life. I have a lot more to give other people. So it is making time for my preferred writing, the writing that is really meaningful to me is really important, just because of how it feeds all the other areas of my life and allows me to show up better as in my business. I have 3 little kids, how to show up better for them and kind of in all these different aspects. But I think everybody, you know, the way you live your life is an act of art, is an act of creativity. So a lot of people say that they're not creative and they don't think that that is a part of who they are. But I mean, if you've made choices and you're directing the way that you live your life, your life is an act of art, I think. So an act of
Absolutely.
creativity.
Beautifully
Absolutely.
stated.
I want to acknowledge you, Jennifer, for pushing through and finding your way to that in your mid 20s. You know, we see so many people in life that live their life out with the dream that they never realize. They work at a job that they don't love because it pays the bills. I found my way to my dream when I was 24 years old.
Oh, really?
I wanted to be a hairdresser more than anything in the world, and I did that for 40 years. And I retired at the end of 2019 after a 40-year career. And it had its ups and downs, but I don't look back with an ounce of regret. I loved it. I loved so much about it. And I have always felt so blessed. And I'm wondering how you're experiencing, for me, it was like, oh my God, I see so many people that are just working for a paycheck, and I get to do something every day that I spend time with people that I really enjoy, and I love what I do. How are you experiencing not being part of that group of people that just draw a paycheck?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different like ways to live in the world, and I acknowledge, and I also acknowledge that I have an immense amount of privilege in finding work and working to find paying work that aligns with my interests. So I want to, I guess, give credit to myself for kind of following that compass, but I also want to give credit to my husband who has, we've been married for almost 17 years. So supporting each other, financially, kind of taking turns of who carries the financial burden at various times. And that steadiness, I feel like, has allowed me to take different pathways. If it had just been me, responsible for all of the bills and things like that, who knows if I would have continued in a job. But there's a million different that you could play that what if game all day long.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
yeah. So I guess I want to acknowledge him, and but also acknowledge myself, and choices that I made, and kind of the compass that steered me throughout.
Well, and I want to celebrate you both because what you're describing is the road less traveled.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it is an amazing achievement to have um, been able to sustain a relationship and to have built a family. That is something that we all hope to do. We know that that's what's most desired, but a lot of people can't make it for a lot of reasons.
Oh, well, thank you.
Well,
Thank
and doing both, to be fully committed to your craft and to do a family, that's a lot. That's a lot. So, we talk to a lot of people that's kind of an either and or because they just can't manage it all. And the
you.
fact that you're managing it all, hats off to you.
Thank you.
So let's circle back to what you said before we actually started, and that was the hesitancy to put yourself out there. Tell me a little more about that and what's behind that.
Yeah, so we were chatting, and I said that, I had hesitancy about filling out my information, and putting myself forward as an artist, as I'd mentioned, was kind of that's the desire that led me to your community event that I attended. And if something's going to have um, make money, if something's going to be good for I'll get on a podcast all day long and talk about my business, and which is also of writing, and to attract opportunities for that and open doors. But I realized that I had hesitancy about putting myself forward as an artist. And I can tell myself that it's because there are particular markers of quote unquote success that I haven't reached yet in my writing journey. But that may not be true, because if I had reached those, would I feel differently? Would I still have that hesitancy about putting myself forward? We'll see. So that was kind of the thing that was that at least that I was allowing to hold me back. Yeah.
Can you describe a little bit about what the hesitancy is, or is there a fear behind that, or something that's just holding you back?
Um, yeah. Well, was talking about this, in therapy not that long ago, and I wasn't expecting to cry in therapy, but I did. And then I said, "Oh boy, there's a lot of feeling there," and I know it's there, but speaking it in a different context, I guess, is what brought up the tears. Um, so I've been pursuing a traditional book deal for quite a while with various different projects. So the way that fiction writing works is that you write, it's a goofy system. You write the whole book, and then you pitch different agents, and you want to get representation for that book. So if you secure an agent, then the agent submits your book out to editors. And if the editor wants it, then they buy it. And so it's so subjective. You get a lot of, oh, this is so wonderful, this is so great, but we already have a book that's kind of similar to it on our list. Or the voice didn't just didn't totally click with me. Like you get a lot of feedback that is non-specific, a lot of non-specific no's, even complimentary no's, but they're still no's. And so I've been through that process a couple times with a couple different agents. And we're talking like over a decade long process in the both the refining of the craft and in the attempts to get an agent and then on submission. And so yeah, so I've just been heartbroken in that respect in the past of having these things that you pour your heart and soul into and that haven't seen the light of day. And of course there are always options, like in terms of what, you know, like self-publishing is always an option, and it's a great option for the people that I work with in my freelancing business, which is nonfiction. Um, it's not as wonderful as an option to me at this moment, at least not as appealing, but it is always an option. So all that to say, I know that there are many, many ways by which these things could see the light of day, and maybe sometime I'll change my mind about how I want them to come to fruition. Um, and still like, so there's that. And then I was thinking about this as I've been like sending emails to my agent, like I've allowed that to hold myself back. Like, well, we haven't sold, so I only have a right to email her like once every 2 weeks or something like that. You know, I've been aware of these thought patterns that I have that say like, oh, you don't have, you know, she's got other clients who make her a lot more money than you, so you don't have the right to email her. And I'm like, oh, I got to get rid of that. You know, I just kind of dispelling that idea and that limiting belief, and like, okay, I have to act as if I have every right to email her politely, you know, when I want to, when I have something to say. I need to, even in this relationship that is being mediated with people who have the ability to sell the book, like I'm not pitching the editors directly, it goes through her because she has the relationships. I still want to act like it's like I'm the boss and like it's my career, because it is, you know, like in effect, they work for you at the end of the day. So yeah, so that's the like hallmark of success that hasn't been achieved yet. But I don't want that to hold me back, you know, or to limit my ability to describe myself as an artist, or to keep me stifled doing the same thing. That's kind of what this year has been all about for me, is trying different things. And you know, if one way didn't work, like, okay, well, how about something else, you know, switch it up, write something new, write in a different form, write poetry, write a weird piece of flash fiction, which is what I did last week, you know, write a picture book. Yeah, so that's what this year has been about for me, is experimentation and taking the bull by the horns, I guess.
Okay, I have a lived experience of a time when I realized if I would put myself out there personally, it would completely impact the effectiveness of my business.
Oh, really?
And I'm wondering if you can speculate how putting yourself out there personally, and for you, that would look like probably putting yourself out there more personally with your agent, because they're the one that's representing you with all those
Mm-hmm.
editors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you can speculate or see how that might change what's been going on for 10 years.
Um, I mean, like how it might, well, that's my yeah, that's what I've been thinking about, is how I need to, like, you know, that whole dance like no one's watching, love like you've never been hurt. Like you really have to, I keep thinking about that and it's so cliche, but I'm like, you kind of, it is true, you know, like you have to act as if you don't have baggage or whatever.
Right.
Like I'm the only one who I'm fully aware that the judgment that I have for myself, conscious or not, other people don't have it. Like I know it's all a me thing in my head. Yeah, so that's I keep
But
thinking about that silly little
but
quote.
if you, in your situation, if you were to do that, what would that look like?
So I'll tell
And
you.
if this is going in a
Uh-huh.
direction you don't want to go, it's okay to
Uh-huh.
say,
No, so no, this is what it's looked like lately. It's being a squeakier wheel and sending more, being like, hey, I found this editor, and what about this, and what about this, and hey, we talked about this, so when is that going to happen? Just being a squeakier, and that's what I'm doing currently, um, and yeah, acting like I have every right to do that because I do, you
you
know?
There you
do.
go.
Mhm,
Absolutely. I can look back and realize that when I have allowed myself to get vulnerable in front of key people in my life, it
mhm.
suddenly they were ready to go to bat for me. And that's what you need. You
Yeah,
need your
uh-huh,
agent to go to bat for you.
yeah.
And the more you reveal yourself and the more she likes you
Mhm,
because it's really seeing a deeper level of you, I just have to wonder if that's going to change the way she presents your books to these editors. That makes sense?
mhm, mhm,
Well, and we've all had those experiences. We know this innately. People like people.
mhm,
And no matter how accomplished anyone is, what really draws you to another person is how you can connect with them and see a little bit of yourself.
mhm,
Yeah,
And
that reflection.
I know what it's like when well, one of the things that Maddox has advised me at times, even just for doing this podcast,
mhm,
he's told me that I need to set aside the stiff persona that I've had in my corporate life, where I
mhm,
needed to make sure that I was delivering the message that was approved and could only show just those things and just be the person that people fall in love with in our living room, right?
mhm, mhm.
Just completely show up, and the whole experience of it's going to change for the better for everybody.
Mhm. I love that. That's so beautiful. And how has that impacted your corporate life? I know I'm not the interviewer here, but I'd love to
No,
hear.
but it's
Well,
a great question, and you
Uh-huh.
do get to
yeah,
ask questions.
yeah, absolutely. Oh, it has completely shifted things in ways that I never could have imagined.
Mhm,
And I'll share with you an early experience of it. After the pandemic, one of the things that I had to deal with was I was in the midst of some intense grief, and I was in a position where I needed to go and present something to a probate office of all places, where they deal with death and dying all the time. So I kind of had a built-in sympathetic audience without even realizing it.
mhm,
And I needed to show them some very mundane stuff for the nature of their business. And I asked them to just be patient with me, because I I could feel the grief coming, and I just needed to cry it out, and
mhm,
I would be with them again. And they were like, "Oh yeah, absolutely," because I mean that's their everyday. They deal with that all
mhm,
the time,
mhm,
and it shifted the experience, because it went from something where they were sitting with a vendor to they were with a human being,
mhm,
and it made it a much richer transaction, or a much richer experience, and not a transaction. You
mhm,
know, we were suddenly communing, we were sharing in something. Yes, we had business to attend to,
mhm,
but we were doing it in the spirit of fellowship, of being human beings and supporting each other. And it was a beautiful thing.
mhm.
It
That's
is a beautiful thing. There's something very magical about vulnerability.
mhm,
I just, it just draws not just anybody to you, it
mhm,
draws the right people too. It's like this self-selecting tool. The minute you get vulnerable, the people that aren't wouldn't really be your people, whew, they
Hmm.
go away. It makes them uncomfortable.
Uh-huh.
But the people that are really your people, it draws them right in. So it's like this self-select tool. It's beautiful. If you want to know who your friends are, just cry or get mad or just,
Uh-huh.
and it's just wow.
Uh-huh.
I love it.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah, I learned early in my life that I was going to have to be okay with crying in front of other people because I did it so much. So I was like, I'm just going to have to, this is just who I am. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to be okay with it, you know? So,
I'm an emotional person myself. I'll make this really brief, but on Dwight's and my first date, 5 minutes into the date, tears streamed down his face.
mm,
And it just drew me in like a moth to flame. It was
uh-huh,
I had my moment, in from the Jerry Maguire movie where she said, "You had me at hello,"
uh-huh.
He had me at the first tear that rolled down his cheek. And yeah, yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, I think, yep, this is it.
Oh, that's great. There
And
you
here we
are.
are. Yep.
Mhm.
Um, okay. L- let's go back and look at a little bit of origin.
Mhm.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about how how creativity showed up for you in your earliest days of your life? Well, the first time you really experienced something that looked, tasted, felt like creativity, and what was it? How old were you, and what was it, and how did it impact you?
Oh boy. Um,
That moment when you were like, "Oh my God, I have to make something. I have to create something."
um, well, I guess it was, I mean, I was a huge reader as a young child. It still am, you know, and then realizing like, oh, people, this book didn't just uh come out of the ether. Somebody wrote it, you know, like that's a job that you can have. Like, okay, that is the job that I want. And that was like 7, you know, when I had that realization. So that's one way. I was always a club starter as a child. And so I think that's one way, you know, I'd be like, let's have a this club or a this club or a whatever. And so we'd like get my friends together and form a little club for whatever I was interested in. So I think that's another way that creativity showed up. And I see it with, so I have my daughters right now. I have twins who are 9 and I have a 3-year-old, and I see them do this all the time too. Just start little games or like we're gonna do a show. And anytime you get like 3 kids together, they're gonna put on a show for you, you know, and they'll spend the whole time figuring out who talks first and getting their costume together, and that will be the 15-minute show. But yeah, I don't know, it's just like the impulse is so present and they just do it, you know, we're going to do a show, we're going to do this. So it's fun to see it now with my own kids, but I was definitely that way too, like let's start a club, let's do a show, let's do a show for you know, my cousins and I would get together at Halloween, or not Halloween, Thanksgiving, and we put on a show for the family. So it's just kind of baked in to to being a kid, you know. So it's everything you do is like that, you know. It's like it's just an expression of creativity, and it's when we get older that we forget about that.
That creating clubs thing, you're kind of demonstrating some community leadership.
Yeah, I would say so. I That's definitely like forming community has always been a priority to not just me, but my husband too. And so looking for places where there's opportunity and kind of like, okay, somebody just needs to make the first invite, and other people want it, you know. Everybody kind of like You know how people say that they're uh, lonely, like they don't just say that. There's a whole loneliness epidemic. But if everybody feels that way, yet nobody is inviting other people to hang out or to start something, then you just need somebody to get the ball rolling, you know? So,
There's a shortage of initiators, for
mhm,
sure.
mhm,
Dwight
right.
and I are definitely initiators, and we marvel sometimes because we make all these invites and have people over to our house, and rarely do we get an invitation.
Mhm, mhm,
And it's not because people don't like us or don't want to hang out with us.
mhm.
It's just they're not necessarily initiators.
Right. Or they probably look at you all and think, oh, well, they're the creativity community guys. They're probably out having these wonderful artistic experiences every night of the week. Like they probably have that assumption. And I think we all go around assuming that of other people. And it's just not true, you know?
It is not true. I think you're right. I think sometimes people feel like, oh, they entertain so beautifully. I could never measure up to that.
Mhm.
So we've really tried to make our entertaining so simple that anybody could do it, trying to literally, do something that's easily replicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for a long time, we in our house, and we're out of the rhythm of this again, and we feel it because the rhythm was so beautiful. But we would have people over every Friday and do frozen pizza and a salad, you know, and nobody's cooking anything. It's a frozen pizza that we got from Aldi, you know, and a salad that we throw together. Like, couldn't be easier. But it was just such a wonderful start to a wonderful way to start the weekend, you know, with other people, sharing a meal.
I, I love the way you're making it easy. Yeah, we just call people and say, come over, be here at 6 and stop at your favorite restaurant and pick up your favorite takeout. So everybody gets exactly what they want to eat. No cooking, no
Yeah.
cleaning.
Uh-huh.
And although it's a little weird when we invite them and say you have to bring your own food, but then everybody tells me, "Oh my God, this is
Uh-huh.
amazing. I loved it."
Right. Uh-huh. They got to
Yeah.
spend time with somebody in someone else's home, you know? That's huge.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great the way that those unfold because we get to bring people together from different areas of our lives, and it's always a good time.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a good time, like a remarkable time. It's just not sort of good. It's
Uh-huh.
usually so good that the nights we entertain, sometimes I don't sleep because I'm just so jazzed. It's just like
Uh-huh.
so amazing. And I can't, come
Uh-huh.
down enough to actually fall asleep. It's crazy.
Uh-huh.
So, writing is a very, and for many people, a very cathartic thing, a very do you find that, or not do you find, but how has writing changed the way you experience you?
Mm. You know, it's really interesting. So Elizabeth Gilbert has said that if you write like the best I'm not gonna quote her correctly, but something like there's she writes when she writes fiction, so she writes nonfiction and fiction, and she says that in her fiction, those are the memoirs, you know, like you write a book of fiction, and then you realize at the end, like you got your thumbprints, your fingerprints all over it because you didn't know you were working out that particular issue, but then like, oh, there it is, you know, you really just kind of gave it all away in the fiction when you thought you were talking about stuff that you just made up, you know. So I found that to be true. Works of fiction that I've done, I've realized at the end of it or midway through, like, oh, I must have really been wanting to work out this particular thing, and that's the impetus behind that. And you can only see it in retrospect. Um, so that's one. It's kind of a very interesting, mysterious form of therapy that you do when you write fiction.
And does that, when you look back and realize that you were writing about some aspect of your own life, does that realization shift your perspective, the way you see it, or the way you're experiencing it, as opposed to the way you experienced it before you had the awareness that you were writing about your own experience?
I think yeah, well, yeah, it kind of allows me to have more compassion and empathy for the people who maybe I was, maybe, just maybe, in the fiction, they were a avatar for someone else in my real life, perhaps, and so the fiction allows me to, like, if I'm writing, if I'm engaged in story, if I'm coming from a place where I have empathy for the characters, which is the only correct place to come from, then at the end of it I can kind of gain some perspective on the situation and have more empathy for that individual in my actual life, even though absolutely none of that was intentional. I didn't like start out saying, oh, this person is this person and I'm going to do this, and so yeah, so allowing me to have more empathy for um people in my actual life, and just people in general, I guess. I'm not sure if that was the question, but
I think that's beautiful.
I think it speaks to what it is that we see in, well, there's a lot that's been written about the value of appreciating fiction for increasing empathy.
mhm.
How has your intensified experience of it, being engaged in the writing act for so long in your own life, informed how it is that you consume others' works, the things that make it to screen or the stage or even other works of fiction?
Mhm. um well, I guess I would, how has it changed the way I consume others' works? I would say as a critic of it, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but
Sure.
something that I do a lot of reading for other people, like helping them with their manuscripts and with particular scenes. And I also just read a ton in my own life. And so I will put down a book if I don't believe, if if their characters aren't grounded enough, and if I don't believe that there's a really good reason for them to do whatever thing that they've done. Um, so and I used to not stop books. I used to finish all of them no matter what, but I don't do that anymore. I'll put them down. And the reason that I put them down is often because I don't believe them. I don't think that the author was tapped in enough to the character, um, to draw believable lines between who they are and the choices that they make.
That's fair.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I actually really I get that. I
Mhm.
get that. It's almost like it's inauthentic. You're reading something that doesn't feel authentic.
Mhm. Yeah, and I talk about that a lot too, because in my business, I help with I ghostwrite nonfiction, and I coach people who are writing nonfiction books. And I say a lot, like, it really doesn't matter what you talk about. It doesn't matter your level of expertise. I mean, it matters some. You need to have a grounding in what you're talking about and not just making things up. But people think that they need some outside qualifier in order to write their book. And that is it doesn't exist. There's nothing that you can hang your hat on and say, like, okay, now I'm ready, now's the time. um but yeah, I say it doesn't matter what it is. What matters is your authentic voice coming through, and the stories that you're able to tell, and you being real on the page, even if you're talking about something that is like quote unquote for business, or meant to paint you as an expert. Like, I really don't care what that is. Or some people say, like, my topic is too boring. I don't know what I can talk about. Like, as long as there's a strong voice, and as long as it's grounded and you're telling real stories and you're being real with people, you're not trying to present yourself as some expert, or um, that's what draws people in. That's what gets them interested in your subject, even if it's boring. So yeah, that's
Yeah, you can deliver anything as long as you bring that vulnerability into it.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
there's definitely a callback to what we were saying earlier. People are drawn to people. They want to be able to see a light when they look inside. They want to know that they're touching someone that's real and not just sending things into the void.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right.
Jennifer, you spoke earlier about working on the book deal for 10 years and you mentioned the word heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it would be of great value to our listeners to hear how you moved through, how you processed that heartbreak in a manner that enabled you to keep going.
Mm. Well, I'll say that I'll specify that this was not just one project. Like, there's different projects, and um, I've had plenty of different projects over the year. So that's the first thing, is to don't get stuck on one. Always be willing to try something new. And so yeah, if 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 what you love is breaking your heart, I guess, then have people in your corner who get it, who you can express that openly with, who you can cry with about it, and don't skip over the place where you have to like feel your feelings and cry it out, and do that, and then I feel that inevitably gives way to fresh energy and fresh ideas, and a willingness to change it up and try something different. And that's essentially always the answer is to try something new. Start a new project, find something else that captures your love and attention, and yeah, keep on going with it.
Iterate,
Mm-hmm. Right.
iterate. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm formulating a question. Have you ever experienced a sense of resentment toward your calling? I mean, you had this calling to write. Has there ever been a time where you just felt resentful that you had actually been called to do that? And if
Uh,
so, how did you navigate that?
oh, plenty of times. Yeah, plenty of times I've thought like, oh, it'd be so easier, so much easier if I could just get a job, or like to be satisfied in some different career. Um, but what are a bunch of what ifs worth at the end of the day, right? Like, they're not worth anything. We only have this one life and this one experience. And so can you can make the best of it. And so yeah, so community is key, finding people who understand what you're going through and have had similar experiences, and just people who get it, and people who you can be real with. And space is a good thing, space and rest, between one project and the next, and then you get fresh energy and you get fresh ideas, and you're just willing to go do it again.
I'm really glad you brought up community. Let's talk a little bit more about that. I'd love to know what community looks like in your life, how it shows up, um, and how it has, in what ways it's benefited your process.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, it's great to be involved with what other people are doing. Like, it's great to, like, being in part of a critique group is really important to me. And I've had periods in my life where I've had it and where I've not, where I've had it again and where I've not, but I've realized that it is really important for me to um make a commitment to that and it's always inconvenient, right? It's never convenient to meet with other people and to align schedules and to make time to read their work and offer feedback and things like that. That's never convenient. But I have a group that does that, and it's once a month. It's not super onerous, but I always leave those energized. And so there's writing group. Then I have like, I don't know, groups at church. I said I said something the other day like, oh, I have a group this I have my writing group this week. And my husband was like, well, I forget you're a part of so many groups. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm only a part of two. And he's like, you have your book club, you have your writing group, you have your creative mornings, you have this, that. And he named like five things. I'm like, okay, it's true. I am a part of a lot of groups.
I love
Yeah,
it.
but I mean, my life is so, I write a lot of, I'm in my house a lot of the time, especially now that my kids are at school. And so there is a very solitary aspect of my life, and just being a mom of young kids, period, can be very isolating. So that is a big strain too. And that's kind of why it's necessary, I think, for me to join and start as many groups as I am a part of.
You're demonstrating, and I want to really call this out. You're demonstrating that there are certain types of creativity that are traditionally done in solitude. It's probably hard to write if you're in a really noisy, distracting place. And so you get in a quiet, still place to do your writing, but then there's other aspects of your process that you don't need to have quiet, and
Mhm.
that's where that community comes in. I think we miss the boat sometimes in saying, well, I can't, people say, I can't paint when there's other people around, or I can't write when there's other people around, or I can't whatever when there's other people around. And that's not it. We're not saying you have to do everything in community,
Mhm.
but community is vital. And, you know, to pull community in those times, and that's what you're really describing right now, the value of, yes, you write in your home, kids off gone to school or daycare, and you're in solitude, quiet stillness, writing. But then there's other part of the process, like the critique aspect of it.
Mhm.
And I think there's a lot of people that are afraid of that. I'm kind of shifting a little bit here, but I think there's a lot of people that when you say, oh, feedback group or critique group,
Mhm.
they're really anxious about having somebody shoot them down.
Mhm.
And if the group is set up properly and managed properly, and there's some guidelines that you go by, you don't ever have to worry about somebody shooting you down. It's not a place of judgment. Have
Mhm.
you experienced that in your group that is the feedback group?
Yeah, there's definitely like rules, you know, of codes of conduct, for and it's small right now. It's like 3 to 4 people, as well as that's also been true of other critique groups that I've been part of in the past. But yeah, if you don't share with other people, like if you're not having people who offer feedback on it, not just offer feedback, but who can be with you as you're developing and sharing, then it doesn't feel real, and it's too easy to give up on. And I think that's probably why most people do. Like they start down a road and have a good idea, and then nothing comes of it because they feel like they have to figure it all out themselves and then present this like perfect thing to other people. And that is just so not the way that things happen.
Thank you for saying that. Man, I hope the listeners out there that, hit that little rewind button by about a minute and listen to what she said again, because that was really powerful.
Mhm. Mhm.
You don't have to have it perfect. It's not about perfection. And it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be finished.
Mhm.
We as creatives do so many things that are just full on sabotage, self-sabotage.
Mhm. Right. And only like when you're missing it and you get it back, do you realize like, oh, this is what I should have been doing all along. This is the way that you get better, you get new ideas, you get other people with you for the highs and the lows.
I mean, I'm hearing you say that the different groups, your community, these little communities that you're in, are kind of the lifesaver. They're the lifeline.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. I really do. Yeah. And there's, like I said, it's never convenient. It's never convenient to get together with people. But I think it's necessary.
Yeah, and worthwhile, even though yes. Well, and I think that we've kind of gotten at a time because we're so busy that most anything like that's inconvenient.
Mhm.
We have to stop our busyness, and we're very, very like addicted and dedicated to our busyness as
Mhm.
human beings.
Mhm.
Speaking of, I have to make it to another meeting, so I'm curious to see how this ends up.
Oh, I
Yeah.
wish you told me that you had a hard stop. Do you need to go right this second?
I do.
All right, go and I'll finish up.
Okay.
That's the first time he's ever had to dip out in the middle of an episode. He didn't tell me that he had a hard stop.
Oh,
So
they put it
what
in.
we what we do at the end of every episode is we do a round of rapid fire questions for
Okay.
rapid fire answers.
Okay.
So are you ready?
Sure.
Question number one, what's your creative spirit animal?
I'm gonna say a dolphin because it's the first thing that came to my mind. Um, yeah, they have fun, and I'm all about making it fun,
They
whatever.
do.
Yeah.
They do.
Uh-huh.
And they're one of the species of mammals that are closest to humans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Choice. Studio space or outdoor inspiration when you're writing?
I'll say I'm inside a lot, so I'll say outdoor.
Oh, okay.
I don't actually write outdoors, but in terms of where inspiration can flow, I'll say outdoors. I
Okay.
take a lot of walks, so that counts.
Yeah, I love walks.
Mhm.
What's the best advice you've ever received from another creative?
Mm. Mm. Don't quit. Try something different. Keep going.
That's pretty sage advice.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's pretty sage advice.
Hmm.
So, do you have anything else that you would like to just off the top of your head leave our listeners with? Any words of wisdom that you have learned in your journey that you think are kind of universal and they would benefit from hearing?
Um, well, I talk to a lot of people who want to write books. So if anybody's listening and they feel that urge, then I would say you have my vote of confidence that it is something that you should do because you want to, So, and I think that the journey of doing that, who you become in the journey of doing that, that's enough reason to do it. So I'm always encouraging people who feel that pull to go for it.
I love the way you word that. Who you become in that journey.
Mhm.
I love that. Thank you for that very much.
You're welcome.
Jennifer, this has been amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, I have loved hearing your story and certainly the depth of the questions that you were willing to go to. Do you feel like maybe in this particular conversation you were able to put yourself out there a little bit more?
I think so. Yeah. So again, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Good, good. And I guess one last question, because sometimes people will say after the interview, wow, I saw some things about my own story that I had never quite like they connected dots. Have you had any awarenesses or anything bubble to the surface as we've had this conversation?
Um, yeah, well, I appreciated what you all shared about what you and Dwight shared about being vulnerable with people um in real life, in real time. And I'll be noodling on what that looks like in my particular context where I am like, I don't want to say siloed, but I'm often pretty solitary and like it's my work hours and now I'm a mom and now like there's a lot of I have my mom friends and my work friends and my writing friends and a lot of our meeting is like asynchronous or on Zoom or there's a lot of community, but there's also a lot of solitary time too. And that's something just who can I talk to? Who can I be real with? How can I seek that out more and more? Even though, like I've said it so many times, it's inconvenient, but that doesn't matter, right?
You
Yeah.
know, I'm hearing the makings of a small club. It could be just a circle of people that get together and just talk, not so much about their creativity, but about what's going on in their heart. Just
Mm-hmm.
create that safe, vulnerable space. That would be
Yeah.
amazing.
Uh-huh.
And it could be just three or four people because community happens when there's two or more.
That's right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
You're that I'll start a club person.
Love
There you
starter.
go.
Yeah.
And it could be all just about, leaning into your vulnerability a little bit more and supporting each other and doing that, creating a safe space for that to show up. I think it's amazing what happens when we do it first because I've really learned the minute I come to the table and get vulnerable, I have given everybody else permission now. Nobody likes to go first. So when I
Mhm.
go first, I give the rest of the room the opportunity to go second, third, and fourth.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's just kind of magical. So I'm often the one to raise my hand because it's not because I'm just like pick me. It's
Right.
more about I just see that if somebody will just step up and I'm willing to do it,
Uh-huh.
then everybody else just follows suit. It's like the little dominoes that all fall like that.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for your time today. It's been amazing. We
Thank you so
appreciate you.
much. Mhm.